Now, as we continue to look at the 20th century, let's look at another movement which has influenced our hymnody, and that is the folk song, American folk hymnody. There was a revived interest in folk music in the wider culture in the late 50s and the early 60s. We had people like Pete Seeger and the Weavers, and you go back even further than that into the 40s. We have Woody Guthrie, but then into the 50s and 60s, we have the Kingston Trio, we have Bob Dylan. And that led to a greater interest in employing folk music and the folk idiom in church music. And we had the folk masses of the late 60s and that sort of thing. But this led to the rediscovery of many old folk tunes and also tunes from the shaped note tradition. And they're being used more frequently in the hymn context, in the church context, including things like Resignation, New Britain, which talked about Oh Wally Wally, McKee, Beach Spring, Holy Manna. These are folk tunes, folk songs that we now employ quite frequently, quite regularly as hymn tunes. But we don't live in the 20th century, do we? I keep talking about, it's hymns, the 20th century. This is the 21st century. And a lot of people would be very surprised that we are even talking about hymns and hymnals in 2022. A whole lot of people, church-going people, would be very surprised that we're even talking about hymns and hymnals in 2022. Because a whole lot of people, a whole lot of church-going people, have never sung a hymn in their lives. Now, my daughter is here. She's 21. So she was, when were you born? You were born in 2001, right? 2001. Now, she does sing. She sings Episcopalian, so she sings hymns. But there are a lot of, 2001, I was working in church music in 2001. 2001, the worship wars of the 1990s had been over for quite some time. And there are a whole lot of people Lottie's age and younger who have never sung a hymn. And they grew up in church and they've never sung a hymn at all. So why are we even talking about hymns? Let's move on to the next thing here. So before we talk about hymnody in the 21st century, and we will, we first need to ask, do we still need hymns in the 21st century? And if so, why? I think we do. And I'll tell you why. We still need song that is eminently congregational. We still need song that is engaging, yet simple enough for a group of people of various experience levels and musical ability levels to sing together. A hymn tune has to be simple enough that any age can sing it, and any musical ability level can sing it, but it has to be engaging enough that it's beautiful and it's interesting. A lot of the modern worship music is written and structured. It's very difficult. I've tried to adapt some things for worship, and it's well nigh unto impossible because you start looking at the structure of this thing, and it doesn't make any sense. You can't just say, okay, we're going to do these 16 bars and then we're going to repeat it. No, it's like we're going to do these 8, and then we're going to do these 7, and then we're going to go back and we're only going to do 6 of those 8 because then we're going to jump to here. It's so bizarre. You have to, only a practiced, rehearsed group can perform them. And so what has happened is we have sort of returned to a pre-Reformation model of worship, where worship is something that the person in the pew, there's not pews anymore, the person in the theater seats observes rather than something that they do. And when congregations are invited to join in, it takes the form of singing along. Okay, you've been to the Alabama Theater and you have the sing along at the beginning, right? Uh, Singing along is not the same thing as singing. Singing along is not the same thing as singing together. I want to be in a worship environment where people are invited to sing together, to unite our voices as one, not to sing along with the stars up on the quote-unquote stage. And hymns were designed to be sung by everyone. That's why I think we still need them. Like I said, many people would be surprised to find that we are even talking about hymns in the 21st century. And they'd be equally surprised to find out that there are a lot of people writing a lot of great hymns in our own day. Too often, discussion about worship music is couched in terms of praise and worship songs being modern and hymns being old, as if there are no hymns being written today, as if there were no hymn writers today, and as if I Can Only Imagine isn't 23 years old, and as if As the Deer isn't 38 years old. I texted that to a friend of mine last night as I was working on this. I said, "As the Deer, you know that song As the Deer?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "It's 38 years old." She said, "Shut up." So it's old, we're old. All right, we're going to look, though, at some hymn writers who are active today and who are having a marked influence not only on our gathered worship, but also on our theological conversations. We've got Brian Wren. Brian Wren wrote This Is a Day of New Beginnings. I just got one representative hymn from each of these. So Ruth Duck, Lead on, O Cloud of Presence. We're doing a Ruth Duck text next week in the hymn festival. She is one of the editors of the Chalice Hymnal, by the way. Shirley Arena Murray wrote For Everyone Born a Place at the Table. She also wrote Who Is My Mother, Who Is My Brother? Lots of great hymns. Jane Parker Huber called us Partners in Christ's Service. We just sang that like a week ago. Timothy Dudley Smith, Tell Out My Soul the Greatness of the Lord, which is a wonderful setting of the Magnificat. Carolyn Winfrey Gillette has written lots and lots of hymns. One of them, O Christ, You Did No Violence. She sort of specializes in writing hymns in response to national tragedies and to events of our day. Fred Kahn wrote Help Us Accept Each Other. And then we have so many hymns now that we are just now sort of becoming aware of that come to us from global Christianity. There's a greater awareness of the music of global Christianity. So I want to look at some of those now. This is a very brief list of hymns representing global Christianity. So if you're not already familiar with these, I consider this as a starting point. There are so many more. First is the music of the Taizé community, just as a whole. You don't have to be around me long to know that I'm quite a big fan of Taizé worship and the music that comes out of Taizé worship. Some other hymnody out of global Christianity that we incorporate in our worship and that churches are beginning to incorporate more in their worship include Sia Hamba, We Are Marching in the Light of God, Cuando el Pobre, When the Poor Ones, Hasta tu Altar, Unto Your Altar, Jesu Tawapano, Santo Espiritu, Excelsa Paloma, which is from Puerto Rico, Being You, the Rice of Life, and Yesu, Yesu, Fill Us With Your Love, from Ghana. Like I said, this is just a tip of the iceberg. But I just encourage you to look in the index of the hymnal. Look in that source, where the index of the authors and the sources of the hymns, and find hymns that are from cultures other than our own, and you will be greatly enriched as you familiarize yourself with some more of these hymns of global Christianity. If you'd like to go deeper with your learning about hymn singing, here are some organizations I can highly recommend. I am a member of all of the above, so I can vouch for them, and I can also let you know how you can get involved. There's the Hymn Society in the United States and Canada. They produce a wonderful magazine called The Hymn, and also an e-newsletter called The Stanza, which are fantastic. They also run the Center for Congregational Song. There is Presbyterian Association of Musicians, and we've got Kevin, our Mid-South president, here today, who can tell you about that. Kevin can also tell you a little something about the American Choral Directors Association. ACDA publishes the Choral Journal every month, and Pam, we produce Call to Worship, which is a quarterly journal, and it's got excellent articles, and then once a year we have the Liturgical Aids issue, which gives like suggested hymns, suggested anthems, suggested handbell music, and all this for like every Sunday of the church year. And then the AGO, American Guild of Organists, and I'm a member of the Birmingham chapter. Charles, who will be our festival organist on Sunday, is our dean this year of the Birmingham chapter of AGO. Their monthly journal is called The American Organist. All of these just full of great resources on congregational song, and I would encourage any and all of them to you.